For the supplies, we're going to need 8 feet of Paracord 550, 2.5 feet of microcord. We're going to need a piece of hardware such as a snap hook or a carabiner, a dowel rod about 1/2 inch in diameter with a rubber band attached. A lacing needle is optional but recommended. A fid is again optional, but it is very useful for tightening up your knots. Finally, scissors as well as a lighter are going to help us cut and melt our cords. Let's begin. To start my tying, I'm going to take my paracord, fold it in half, then place the middle point so the bight under the rubber band. I'm going to pull a couple of inches of my cord into the bight, creating my wrist loop. Using the two ends, I'm going to do a single wrap around, then using this left end, I'm going to do another turn, finishing here on the bottom right. This way I get 3 strands to weave through. Using my first end, I'm going to pass under, over, under. Using the other end, so the second one, I'm going to pass under my first end, then continue parallel to the first end, going over, under. So both ends have the same sequence. Under, over, under. Take one of your ends, turn it towards the right, following the strand on the left. So here we start over, then we continue under, and finish on the right with an over. Take the other end, again turn around towards the right and follow the strand on the left. So again over, under, finishing with an over. On the right, take one of your ends, start by traveling under 2. So under the bight as well as the other end. So under 2, then over 2, and under 2. Using your other end, we exit on the right going over 2. Then we re-enter under 2. So again, under the bight as well as the first end. So under 2, over 2, finishing under 2. So that's our knot. For now, remove your rubber band as well as the dowel rod. Take one of your ends. Remember that we finished going under 2. Then pass over this end, so one of the strands coming into the knot, so go over that, then immediately through the center of the knot to the right. Take the other end. Again, we finished with an under 2. Pass over a strand coming into the knot, then immediately pass through the center of the knot to the right. So that's our knot. Tighten it up by gently pulling on both the ends as well as your loop. Then pull one of these strands into your knot, through the knot, pulling the slack into one of your ends. Pull the other strand coming into the knot into your knot. Go through the knot. Pulling the slack into one of your ends. Then tighten up my knot for a second time. With our first knot tied, we take the 2 ends of our cord, feed them through our hardware, then bring our hardware closer to our first knot. So here I have a distance of about 3 inches. I'm going to fold over the 2 ends like this, trapping my hardware in place. Then I'm going to secure this part using a rubber band. So like this, we're ready to begin tying a second decorative knot. To make things easier to see, I've added this piece of paper here. You don't have to do this. Start with 2 wraparounds. So 1, 2. This gives us a total of 4 strands to weave through. Take the left end, pass under over, under over. Take the other end, so the second one, pass under your first end, then travel parallel to your first end, going over, under, over. So each end travels under, over, under over. Take one of your ends, pass it under your other end, like this, then travel alongside this strand on the left. So we started under, then we continue over, under, finishing over on the right. Using your other end, we finish our sequence on the left with an over 2. Then pass under your first end, then continue by doubling up the strand on the left. So we started under, then over, under, finishing over on the right. Now pick up one of your strands. Start your sequence by traveling under 2. So under the bite as well as the other end. Under 2, then over 2, under 2, finally over 2 on the left. The other end finishes over 2 on the right, then starts a sequence of under 2, so again under the bite as well as the first end. So under 2, over 2, under 2, finishing with an over 2. Now take one of your ends, pass it under the knot all the way to the right. Take the other end, again, pass under the knot all the way to the right. I'm now going to remove my piece of paper, then we're going to tighten up our knot. To tighten up your knot, start with a strand coming into the knot, pull the slack into your knot, going through your knot, pulling the slack into one of your ends. Then, pull the other strand coming into the knot, into your knot, go through the knot, pulling the slack into one of your ends. At this point, I'm going to remove my rubber band, again, pull the slack into my knot and tighten up my knot for a second time. We are now going to tie a covering knot over the knot that we just tied. To make things easier to see, I'm going to cover my knot using a piece of paper. You don't have to do this. On the left here, we have two ends. Take the bottom one, attach a lacing needle. Start by wrapping around like this, passing over your standing end. Come around, passing over this strand here. Then, from right to left, pass under over. Come around, double up your standing end. So, under over. From right to left, we travel the opposite to this strand. So, over, under over. Come around, reaching your standing end. It is doubled up. Here, we're going to travel in between these two strands, doing the opposite. So, over, under, over. On the right, we again travel the opposite to this strand. So, under, over, under, over. Take your end, pass it under the knot, all the way to the right. This is our 5-part 4-bite Turk's head. We continue by attaching our lacing needle onto the other end. Follow your first standing end on its left. So, under, over, under, over, then under, exiting the knot on the right. We now re-enter, traveling over, under, over, under, then over 2 on the left. To continue, re-enter the knot with an under, then over, under, over 2, under 1. On the right, we enter the knot with an over 1, then under, then over, under 2, over 2. We re-enter the knot with an under 1, continuing over 1, under 2, over 2, under 1. On the right, we re-enter the knot over 1, under 1, then over 2, under 2, over 2. On the left, we enter with an under, then we continue over 2, under 2, over 2, then exiting under 1. On the right, we do our final sequence over 1, under 2, over 2, under 2, over 2, exiting on the left. Now, take your end, pass it under the knot all the way to the right, tying a gaucho fan knot. I'm going to remove my piece of paper here. After removing my piece of paper, I'm going to start tightening up my knot onto the core knot at the center. To do this, I pull one of the strands coming out of the core knot into my knot, then I run the slack through the knot into one of the ends. Do the same thing with the other end. So again, pulling the slack coming out of the core knot into your knot, running the slack through the knot into one of the ends. Do your tightening process perhaps one more time, then we're going to trim the ends. Continue by cutting off the two ends here, melting them a bit, pushing the very tips under the knot to hide them out of sight. We now connect our two decorative knots using a series of cobra knots. Take your microcord, fold it in half. Pass the middle point under your cord like this. Take the top strand, pass it under the bottom one, creating a 4 shape. Then, using the same strand, pass over the top into the loop on the left. Tighten up. Push your knot towards the top. Continue on the right, under the cord, over the left end. The left end passes over the top into the loop on the right. Tighten up. Continue on the left, under the cord, over the right end. The right end passes over the top into the loop on the left. Tighten up. Again, the right end under the cord, over the left end. Left end over the top into the loop on the right. Tighten up. Left end under the cord, over the right end. Right end over the top into the loop on the left. Tighten up. Continue this all the way to the bottom. Finish up by trimming as well as melting the ends. Optionally, add a bead and you are done. So guys, that's our tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and that you were able to make your own fancy lanyard. Thank you for joining me and see ya next time.